for the hardest-hitting show in talk radio. The true progressive voice since 2012. This is Southpaws.
And welcome to Southpaws on the Pacifica Radio Network. We are the leaders of the revolution. My name is Darren Gibson.
My name is Jack Prince.
Boy, Jack, this has been a banner week for us. Donald Trump got raided, basically. The FBI served a search warrant at his Mar-A-Lago home on Monday. We got to talk about that. Plus, the Republicans are just up in arms over this. I love watching their heads rotate. It's great. I'm waiting for him to start spewing green stuff, like Linda Blair in The Exorcist.
It's a good picture. No, the thing is, really, that's been backshadowed by the great week that Biden had. So it's been a 1-2 punch, and let's hope some of that energy can keep going.
Yeah, and Trump's not the only Republican that's having a bad time. There's quite a few in Michigan that are having a bad time thanks to Attorney General Dana Nessel. So we'll talk about her investigation into allegations of the 2020 election and the investigations, quote-unquote investigations that have been going on. So some people might be seeing jail time in the state of Michigan, including her opponents. So we'll talk about that in just a little bit here. Before we get started with today's show, a couple of reminders that you can follow us on social media by going to facebook.com/Southpaws Radio Show. You can follow us on Twitter at Southpaws Radio. You can follow us on Tumblr at southpawsradioshow.tumblr.com. You can follow us on YouTube by doing a search for Southpaws Radio, and you can become a patron of the show by going to patreon.com/Southpaws Radio. You can listen to the show anytime at Spreaker, Stitcher, Apple Podcast, or Reason.fm by doing a search for Southpaws. Once you found our logo, you found us. We send links to our weekly episodes to our Facebook, Twitter, Tumblr, and YouTube accounts. You can listen to us on Global Community Radio Channel 1 every Saturday night at 11 Eastern, and you can listen to us on great Pacifica stations, including KCEI in Taos, New Mexico, KZGM in Kabul, Missouri, and KEPJ in San Antonio, Texas. So be sure to listen to us there as well. Before we get started with what happened at Mar-A-Lago on Monday, Jack, I got some audio that I want to play for you. I totally missed playing this last week as we ran out of time, but this is the daughters of Guy Reffitt. Now, who's Guy Reffitt? Guy Reffitt was one of these traitors that stormed the Capitol on January 6th, and he was recently sentenced for his role in the January 6th riot. He got 86 months in prison. So CBS talked to this guy's daughters, and I don't think they're happy with the sentence, but they think that somebody else should be going to jail for a lot longer. So let's take a listen to this. This is something else.
To mark my dad as this horrible person, and then having him prosecuted like this when somebody is maybe even able to get elected again doesn't seem right to me.
Trump deserves life in prison if my father's in prison for this long.
Wow.
Never thought you'd hear that from Trump supporters, would you?
That is music to my ears.
Yeah, and apparently the way that this guy Reffitt was found out was that his son turned him in to federal authorities. Because I guess his son got a threat, snitches get stitches, whatever you want to call it. Apparently, the father threatened the family, don't you dare tell anybody where I was.
Yeah, did he not say he'd shoot them? Is that the same?
I believe so.
Yeah.
Well,
wow.
The mom and the daughters didn't believe him, but the son believed him enough that he contacted federal authorities, and now dad's sitting in jail. Well, prison, federal prison.
Yeah, you wanted 4 more years and you got 87 months.
Oh, my God. I wasn't expecting that. Oh, yeah. So
Rightfully so.
yes.
What are they at? To almost 900 arrests. And that's
go ahead.
way more to go. I mean, really, that little riotous group labeled tourists were 800 violent, including our own local Ryan Kelly, right?
Yep. Has
hitmen.
Exactly. Has Ryan Kelly conceded the election yet, or is he still fighting that? Do we know?
He had another comment not too long ago, something about checking the machines. Of course, we're in the era of fraud with our own conspiracy, including the local yokel, that being Leaf over at the police department in Hastings, that illegally went and confiscated these machines. And when they got them back, they had been tampered with. And that whole image of accusation against the election, with that as a backdrop, I couldn't believe Ryan Kelly played that card. Are you kidding me?
I know. He violated the 11th commandment. Thou shalt never speak ill of another Republican.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah,
I'm ill. I get ill just speaking of him myself.
Me too.
I'm having a good morning here. I guess I got enough sleep last night.
Oh, man. Well, I'll tell you what, we'll get more into the exploits of Barry County Sheriff Darren Leaf and his ilk
Please.
A little bit later. Let's
Absolutely.
get to the top story this week. Jack, you and I got together on Monday, and we were talking about, is the Justice Department ever going to prosecute Trump? We assumed we were never going to see this. However, we never expected the FBI to execute a search warrant on Mar-A-Lago either. Wow.
Yeah. Bombshell.
Yeah. So I got this story. This is Rebecca Betch and Harbor Nedig writing for The Hill, published at Nexstar Media Wire. This is dated August 8th. The FBI executed a search warrant on Donald Trump's home in Florida on Monday. That's according to Trump himself. We wouldn't have known about this, but Trump had to release a statement because, God forbid, he stay out of the news for one day. Trump lashed out at law enforcement for what he called political persecution. In a statement that included a link for donations to his political action committee, Trump said, quote, "My beautiful home Mar-a-Lago in Palm Beach, Florida is currently under siege, raided and occupied by a large group of FBI agents. After working and cooperating with the relevant government agencies, this unannounced raid at my home was not necessary or appropriate." End of quote. Yeah, it was, buddy.
Yeah, and they love to say this is unprecedented. This has never happened with a president. But they truncate the fact that Trump did the unwarranted, unprecedented raid on our democracy. No connection between the two.
Nope. They just want to look at what's happening now instead of what he did. Although I will say there have been some news sources that have been really good at picking up on this stuff. So I'll give them credit.
Yeah.
Let me continue here. The remarkable execution of a search warrant at a former president's home comes as the Justice Department has accelerated its investigation into the January 6, 2021 attack on the Capitol. Let me add, traitorous attack, because that's what it was. And further examine the actions Trump took to overturn the 2020 election results to remain in power. It was a coup, folks. That's what a coup looks like. Oh, gosh, I love this next paragraph here. It was not immediately clear what was examined during the search, nor what the search warrant specified, but Trump said the law enforcement officials, quote, even broke into my safe, end of quote.
Yeah.
I could just see them like Jared on Storage Wars. Oh, I found a safe in a storage unit. I got to see what's in there. They got a crowbar and a big old mallet, and they start pounding on it, and you see the chalk fly from it, and the metal's bending. I can't get the door off. Well, I guess we need to call a safe cracker.
Yeah. Yeah, they even broke into Mrs. Trump's room and lingerie drawer, I guess. So who knows what they're going to find.
Ugh, gross. I'm sorry. I don't like her. I think she is just, she's disgusting, number one. My opinion. Because of who she's married to. They're two peas in a pod. Two peas in a pod.
And she's not just the brainless, tag-along, trophy-looking wife. She's hardcore conservative. She was before she got to America.
Yeah.
So as her family. But the thing is now, going back to the break-in, with the smoke without fire, let's be honest. Unless they get video of Trump French kissing Putin or something, right? Anything short of that, these idiots are going to have another stage planned, unified show of force. I bet my mortgage.
Oh, I would too.
You know it. Have you read some of the stuff that's floating around out there?
Yeah. Well, the first thing when this news broke that the FBI had executed a search warrant on Mar-A-Lago, I reported a couple of comments to Facebook for violence, one being that it was time to storm the White House.
Yeah.
Really? I wanted to respond, please try and let me know what happens when a few hundred troops just mow you down with automatic weapons. But I didn't want to get another ban from Facebook. Unbelievable.
Well, it was almost instantaneous. Lock and load. Load.
It's like Pavlov. You ring the bell and the dog salivates.
Yeah, that's right. That's a good comparison. Exactly.
The Department of Justice declined to comment on the execution of the search warrant. But apparently what we found out since Monday was that they were looking for more documents that Trump illegally took with him when he left the White House.
Mm-hmm.
Now, here's the thing. He's violating, number one, the Presidential Records Act, so he could probably get jail time for that. Number two, they had mentioned on the Today Show on Thursday that Trump strengthened the laws regarding the destruction of documents, taking of documents. He did this in reaction to Hillary and her 33,000 emails, or how many ever emails it was, and smashed hard drives and all that other BS.
Yeah.
So wouldn't it be funny if Trump gave himself the rope to hang himself with?
It's altogether possible. I mean, what's incredible is that under all of this combined investigation from Georgia to New York and now with Mar-a-Lago, that he remains steadfast in his arrogance, in his rally call to his supporter. The red meat continues to flow out of his mouth. Mm-hmm. But I honestly believe that at some point, the dam's going to break. And when it breaks, I think it's going to be severe. It's just a race between that and the next act of insurrection.
Yeah.
A Capitol building someplace. I don't know. Throw any ideas out. Another thing that really upsets me is the GOP running around insisting on answers. One of the officials said directly to the head of the FBI, demanding an explanation, demanding answers. Simultaneous, in the same minute, Trump is sitting throwing out Fifth Amendment declarations one after another.
Yeah,
hundreds of them.
Yeah,
that's also after his son went through what do they say? 500 Fifth Amendment pleas. Yep. Can you imagine that red parrot sitting up in the court of law there, going through his constitutional right, uttering that over and over and over for hours, sitting there?
What I love is that the national media has been juxtaposing that with Trump's own words from 2016. Fifth Amendment. That's what the mob uses. The mafia uses the Fifth Amendment. Doesn't that mean you're guilty? But now he's backtracking and saying, oh, now I see why innocent people plead the Fifth. No, you're guilty. Oh.
Plus, it also exposes the fact he's very cozy with the history of the mafia. Doesn't know our history. Thinks that the Union Army in the Civil War had an Air Force, but he does know mafia history.
Well, because he's probably part of the mafia. paid off by
Yeah,
him.
oh, hell yes. He had a mafia lawyer.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll get to some of the Republican reaction to this. Let me continue the story here. The New York Times reported that the search appeared to be focused on records that Trump brought with him to the Mar-a-Lago estate after leaving the White House. Last year, the National Archives reportedly asked the Justice Department to investigate after authorities recovered 15 boxes of materials from Trump's Florida home that should have been left with government records keepers. And by the way, they think there's still, even after the search warrant, there might be more boxes of documents that have not been found yet.
Wow.
In recent weeks, DOJ has been focusing on Trump's efforts to remain in power through a false elector scheme, transmitting what campaign officials referred to as fake election certificates in order to reverse the 2020 election in key states won by President Biden. The department has reportedly convened a federal grand jury to investigate the scheme, in addition to the grand jury investigation into the January 6th attack. So this is coming from all sides, and I don't know if Trump has anywhere that he can duck and run for cover on this. I think he's running out of spaces.
I do too. Yep.
It also previously executed search warrants on 2 lawyers who worked with Trump. DOJ seized the phone of John Eastman, who crafted memos for the campaign detailing the false elector strategy, as well as a plan for then Vice President Mike Pence to buck his ceremonial duty to certify the election results. And it also searched the home of Jeffrey Clark, an assistant attorney general Trump weighed installing as attorney general so he could forward an investigation into his baseless claims of election fraud. But there are signs the Department of Justice may have expanded its probe. Last week, Trump's former White House counsel, Pat Cipollone, was reportedly called to testify before a federal grand jury, as was his deputy Patrick Philbin. The 2 men may be able to offer a more wide-ranging look at Trump's actions leading up to January 6th. Cipollone pushed back against another plan by Trump campaign attorneys to seize voting machines. He also had concerns about the legality of Trump's plans to march to the Capitol on January 6th, according to testimony from White House aide Cassidy Hutchinson before the House committee investigating the attack. Kenneth Klukowski, former deputy to Clark, is also reportedly cooperating with the DOJ investigation. In his lengthy statement, Trump railed against the search, comparing it to Watergate. Boy, there's 2 crooks right there, Trump and Nixon. He wrote, quote, "Here, in reverse, Democrats broke into the home of the 45th president of the United States." End of quote. Do you
see the inability to have any type of correspondence, a comparison between a illegal break-in of the plumbers, right?
Yeah.
And the FBI. I mean, Trump just stretches it so thin, and his followers aren't smart enough to decipher. I mean, that's pure malarkey to compare the Watergate break-in with this. Absolutely.
The Dems broke into my home.
Wow.
Yeah, I don't think so. But the Republicans are really mad about this. They're rallying around Trump, even some of his detractors. I've got this story. This is David Morgan and Rose Horowitz writing for Reuters. This is dated August 9th out of Washington. Republicans moved to turn the FBI search of Donald Trump's Mar-a-Lago estate into a campaign issue on Tuesday, vowing to probe what they alleged was political interference at the Justice Department if they win majorities in Congress in November. Trump's allies in the House of Representatives and the Senate said the FBI search for documents Trump removed from the White House was meant to sideline Trump as a possible 2024 presidential contender. No, that's called holding criminals accountable for their actions.
That's right.
Which the Republicans don't know about. They coddle their criminals. Democrats actually, and I criticize the Dems all the time, but Democrats actually prosecute them. Like the guy in, where was it? Was it Arkansas a few years ago? Maybe 10 years ago, the guy had all that money hidden in his freezer, wrapped in aluminum foil.
Oh, yeah.
House Republican leader Kevin McCarthy said on Twitter just after the raid Monday evening, quote, "When Republicans take back the House, we will conduct immediate oversight of this department, follow the facts, and leave no stone unturned. Attorney General Garland, preserve your documents and clear your calendar." End of quote.
Tough guys.
Yeah. Oh, they're all tough when they're being aggrieved.
Yeah.
Who's the snowflakes now, huh? That's
No kidding.
unreal.
Yeah, exactly.
House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, the chamber's top Democrat, scoffed at Republican claims that Garland had politicized the FBI, pointing out that agency director Christopher Wray was appointed by Donald Trump. Pelosi chuckled to reporters in the U.S. Capitol, quote, "What would you expect them to say? That's typical of them to try to undermine a person," end of quote. Oh, You mean like they did to the judge that signed the search warrant? This is a guy that is a Republican. You want to know what the right-wing media, the violent right-wing media, is doing to smear this judge?
Well, he sent life threats. I know that. I know they threatened his life. I don't know if that's the established media. But...
Oh, no. I believe it was the New York Post was the first to publish that this judge in Florida, he's a federal magistrate that was appointed in 2018 under Trump. Trump didn't appoint him, but still, it happened under Trump's watch, that this guy, before being appointed to being a federal magistrate, he had worked as an attorney for some of Jeffrey Epstein's employees who were getting ready to blow the whistle on Epstein. So now they're smearing him with that.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So let's see. This guy helps people exercise their right to defend themselves legally, and they smear him. Unbelievable.
There's going to be a ramped up action within a week or two, and they're pressing Trump now to make the declaration for the presidency in 24. And I think the reason that he's not reciprocating with their pleas, he's had a lot of high-pressure GOP people say, hey, run. It's an umbrella of protection for you right now. The sooner the better. Run. Make your announcement. And he hasn't. And I'm surprised. And the longer he delays in making that announcement tells me there's real gravitas with the disclosure from these documents. Mm-hmm. Because he doesn't want to stick his neck out and then get hit in the face with some real smoking guns. And so I'm encouraged. I really am encouraged that there's real fire behind the smoke. The January 6th committee has their hands on it. I'd like to ask you what you think they could get that would really be powerful. In my mind, it'd be more proof and linkage between real planning, pre-planning between some of these groups. You mix in the Alex Jones tape. And, if you can be objective and not back down to all the bluster from the right and from the four-wheel drive Confederate flag guys, if you can just look over that. In a football analogy, we've scored 3 times and they fumbled the ball twice and the clock is ticking. It was a hell of a week. It was joyful seeing the sweat drip off Jones' forehead. It's been great.
Oh, yeah.
And let's keep it rolling.
Yeah. Let me read this next paragraph. Again, this is from Reuters. They're reporting that Republicans are favored to win a majority in the House, and I don't know why. You women out there, you need to get out and vote. These violent conservatives want to force you to carry babies. They want you barefoot and pregnant in the kitchen. Why do you vote for them?
A blue wave. That's what we should be talking. A blue wave, totally infuriated with the Supreme Court decision. Forget the guaranteed win by the Republicans.
Yeah.
That whole thing's been tailored by the right. There needs to be a response back. So no, on the opposite.
Yeah.
There's going to be a blue wave of pissed off American women.
I hope so. Get on vote. You need to register.
Do you know how red Kansas is?
Yeah. And they turned back further restrictions on abortion. They said no in large numbers, double digits.
Yeah. There's an old book called What About Kansas? Or What Happened in Kansas? I read it. The catalyst for the red takeover in Kansas, guess what it was? It was abortion.
Yeah.
It was the other side of the ledger then.
Yeah.
They became a red state over the issue of abortion where the women raised up and said, we don't want to see these fetuses, yada, yada, yada. And now they turn with huge numbers, 60% voting down a Republican agenda. Yeah. That should be real encouragement. The Democrats should be saying, watch out, here we come.
And I said it on last week's show. If that same proposal had been put up in the 49 other states, They would be shot down in most of the states except for the extreme south and
Alabama.
a couple of states out west. Hell, Texas would have shot that down.
Idaho would not have.
Yeah, Idaho would not have. Alabama, Oklahoma, I think, was one of them. Let me continue here. The Republicans apparently also have a chance of reclaiming the Senate in the November 8th midterm elections. They won't if you go out and vote, folks.
That's right.
Trump's own reputation has taken a hit within his own party in recent weeks following congressional hearings into his actions around the January 6th assault on the Capitol by his followers. 1/3 of Republican respondents to a Reuters Ipsos poll last month said they think Trump should not run for president again in 2024. But yet, you compare that to CPAC, and they overwhelmingly
69%.
favored Trump, 69%. DeSantis wasn't even close. It's unreal. It's cognitive dissonance and confirmation bias all wrapped up into one disgusting orange blob called Trump.
Yeah, it is. And the orange blob took out, it looks like he will have taken 8 of the Republicans that voted for impeachment out of their careers. 2 are continuing, 8 went down in flames, including our own Meyer right here in Michigan.
Yeah, we talked about that on the show last week. Now 4 of them have retired, including Fred Upton in Kalamazoo, and that was because his district was consolidated, and Bill Huizenga, who was in the 2nd district, is now in that district. So instead of having Upton versus Huizenga in a primary, Upton just said, I'm done, I'm retiring. Let me continue here. Trump's son Eric acknowledged that the search was part of an investigation into Trump's removal of official records from the White House to his Florida estate. The FBI action marked an escalation of a federal records probe, one of several investigations Trump is facing from his time in office and in private business. But Republicans ignored the possibility of a serious records breach. Republican Representative Vern Buchanan vowed on Twitter, quote, "Political targeting is the hallmark of a banana republic, not the United States. House Republicans will exert strong oversight next year," end of quote. No, you had a banana republic when you had that orange blob in office, you moron. Tin pot dictator banana republic from 2017 to 2021 called Donald John Trump. Republicans.
The epitome.
Yep.
The epitome of a banana republic. Let's face it.
Yep. Republicans spent years probing Trump's 2016 rival Democrat Hillary Clinton over her use of a private server for official emails during her tenure as Secretary of State, an investigation that grew out of the 2012 attack in Benghazi, Libya, that killed 4 Americans. During his 2016 campaign, Trump encouraged his supporters to regularly chant, "Lock her up," at his rallies, threatening to turn the Justice Department against Clinton if elected. Yeah, that's the other irony. This is a guy that wants to weaponize the Department of Justice. Now, the Republicans, most of them who don't like Trump, are now saying, oh, the Democrats are weaponizing the Justice Department against Trump. No, that's bullshit. That is bullshit.
It is.
Former Congressman Mike Pompeo, who served as Trump's Secretary of State and CIA Director, said in a tweet that misspelled Clinton's first name, quote, "I served on Benghazi Com when we proved Hillary possessed classified info. We didn't raid her home," end of quote. Oh, well, yeah, Mike Pompeo. Right there's another violent conservative traitor. Unbelievable.
Yeah, and there's just some natural components to the Republicans' mind. They are not capable of either knowing what a false equivalency is or doing anything about it. To them, they've got a license.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They have got a license for these ridiculous comparisons. And the one with Hillary to Trump is laughable. Hunter, the whole thing is a grain of sand against a mountain. And they keep getting away with it.
It is. People need to call them out on their BS. They really do.
Yeah, like you're doing right here, right now.
Yep. Top Senate Republican leaders, including Minority Leader Mitch McConnell, had little to say about the raid. One exception was Senator John Barrasso, the party conference chairman, who tweeted this, quote, "Raiding a former president's home is unprecedented. The Justice Department needs to quickly and transparently tell the American people who approved this raid and why it occurred," end of quote. Well, we can tell who approved it. It was the federal magistrate that signed the search warrant. You have to have here's how the process works, folks, especially you violent conservatives that can't think for yourselves.
We'll help you.
When you go in front of a judge saying that you want to execute a search warrant on somebody, you better have evidence, you better have probable cause, because if you lie to the judge and he signs a warrant and you execute it and it comes out that your information was bogus, guess what's going to happen to you? You're going to go in front of that same judge and you're going to have to explain to him why your information was bad. You're probably going to see jail time. That's the truth, folks. Right there it is. Trump himself and some Republican campaign committee seized on the unprecedented search of Trump's home to raise campaign donations for their battle against Democrats and President Joe Biden's agenda. Trump was due to dine at his golf club in Bedminster, New Jersey on Tuesday with Republican Representative Jim Banks, who chairs a leading conservative caucus, according to an aide. It was not clear whether they would be joined by other Republican lawmakers. I guarantee you they were. I believe about a dozen of them.
Yeah.
And by the way, the golf course at Bedminster is the final resting place for Ivana Trump. Did you see that?
Oh, is that where she's buried?
Yeah. Apparently, there's some sort of a law in New Jersey that if there is a body buried on a property, it technically becomes a cemetery, therefore is entitled to tax breaks.
So they buried her out there.
I'm oversimplifying it, but yeah, it's true, folks.
Pet cemetery.
Pet cemetery. Stephen King hates Trump. Absolutely despises him. You ought to read Stephen King's Twitter account. It's amazing.
I'll tell you who really does too is Robert. You know, the guy, the late night show.
Colbert,
excuse me, just ripped on Trump. It's, you know, he's got it down on art form.
Oh yeah. Well, it wasn't just Donald Trump that the FBI has gone after. This is Michael Balsamo writing for the Associated Press. This is dated August 9th out of Washington. U.S. Representative Scott Perry said his cell phone was seized Tuesday morning by FBI agents carrying a search warrant. Perry is a Trump supporter, by the way.
Yep.
The circumstances surrounding the seizure were not immediately known. Perry, though, has been a figure in the congressional investigation into Donald Trump's actions leading up to the January 6, 2021 Capitol insurrection. Traitorous insurrection. Former senior Justice Department officials have testified that Perry, a Pennsylvania Republican, had an important role in Trump's effort to try to install Jeffrey Clark, a top justice official who was pushing Trump's baseless claims of election fraud as the acting attorney general. In a statement Tuesday, Perry said 3 agents visited him while he was traveling Tuesday with his family and, quote, seized my cell phone, end of quote. You know what he called the action, Jack? The direct quote, Banana Republic tactics.
There you go.
Once again, Banana Republic is what this country was under with Trump as president. We were a tin pot dictatorship, Banana Republic. Unbelievable, folks. Un-fucking believable. Oh, this angers me, Jack. This really does.
Well, it should, because we're at a red DEFCON threat of danger erupting again.
Yeah.
I mean, they've been seating with the J6 committee railing on Trump. They have been waiting for the quarterback to say, let's go at it. And now they've got it. This thing with the FBI, they have got the trigger to the atomic bomb. Yeah. I'm telling you, you better brace yourself, America. You better have some kind of a contingent plan, because they're not going to take this sitting down. They're too stupid. They won't listen to the facts. It doesn't make any difference what the history is. Your recollection of Trump's actions during his tenure, they have none of that. I have semi-intelligent friends that are Republicans that still think, well, yeah, he's kind of a extreme, but look all he did for America. What? What the hell did he do for America? They'll say that. You look, okay, what? Well, you know, they want me to know. There's nothing.
Yeah.
He lowered taxes for corporations. That's it.
Yeah, pretty much. And then put it on the backs of the working people.
Yeah.
like they all do. All the Republicans do that.
You can't tell them.
All Republicans, all these poor Republicans think, well, we might be rich someday. No, it ain't going to happen. You're not in their big club, as Carlin would say.
Yeah. And I still remember my dad's words. I sound like Joe Biden. But I was being asked to be a bouncer when I was in college to make some money in the summer. And my dad said, no, don't do that. And if you do that, never, ever get into an argument with a crazy person. Don't do it. You can't win. It won't do any good.
Yeah.
They're going to act out their violence, and these right-wingers are going to act out their violence regardless. It is their nature. To them, it's patriotic. To them, it's honorable. It's what a man does. And it's going to come. It's coming like a wave.
Yeah.
There's got to be some kind of immediate conviction of wrong done by Trump. If the FBI can't do it because of the procedural legal ramifications, I understand. But there's got to be somebody somewhere else that says this is what has been retrieved. Yeah, they can do it and slow these guys down, or it's going to be a hellish fall.
Yep. Perry said, quote, they made no attempt to contact my lawyer who would have made arrangements for them to have my phone if that was their wish. I am outraged, though not surprised, that the FBI, under the direction of Merrick Garland's DOJ, would seize the phone of a sitting member of Congress, end of quote. No, because if they contacted your lawyer, you would have erased your phone.
Yeah.
Because that's what Republicans also do. They try to cover up evidence of their crimes.
They're good at it.
Yeah. The lawmaker representing Pennsylvania's 10th District was cited more than 50 times in a Senate Judiciary report released in October 2021, outlining how Trump's efforts to overturn his election defeat to Joe Biden brought the Justice Department to the brink of chaos and prompted top officials there and at the White House to threaten to resign. Perry, who has continuously disputed the validity of Biden's victory in Pennsylvania, has said he obliged Trump's request for an introduction to Clark, then an assistant attorney general whom Perry knew from unrelated legislative matters. The three men went on to discuss their shared concerns about the election, Perry has said. The Justice Department found no evidence of widespread fraud in Pennsylvania or anywhere else for that matter. Senior justice officials dismissed Perry's claims. The Senate report outlined a call Perry made to then acting Deputy Attorney General Rich Donahue in December 2020 to say the department wasn't doing its job with respect to the elections. Perry encouraged Donahue to elicit Clark's help because he's, quote, the kind of guy who could really get in there and do something about this, end of quote. Perry has said his official communications with Justice Department officials were consistent with the law. Oh, really? The Justice Department's Inspector General conducted a search in June of Clark's Virginia home. Perry slammed the Justice Department's decision to serve him with a warrant as, quote, unnecessary and aggressive action, end of quote. He added this, quote, my phone contains info about my legislative and political activities and personal private discussions with my wife, family, constituents, and friends. None of this is the government's business, end of quote. Yes, it is, actually. By the way, the seizure of Scott's cell phone was first reported by Fox Propaganda Channel.
Yeah.
So that's what's happened nationally with the election fraud claims. Let's move to some Michigan stuff here, because Michigan was one of the states that the Republicans fielded a cadre of fake electors to try and certify the vote for Trump, not Biden, who won the state.
I have the list of those electors, those fake electors, in my drawer.
Yep, and I believe I've read their names on air, so just go back into the archives and you'll get a good dose. This is Jacqueline Francis writing for Wood Television. This is dated August 7th. Berry County Sheriff Dar Leaf and 8 others could face charges in connection to their actions after the 2020 election following an investigation by the Michigan Attorney General. Yep. Dar Leaf, multiple-time douchebag of the week winner on this show.
Hands down.
Yep. As first reported by the Detroit News, the Republican candidate for State Attorney General Matt DePerno is also on that list of people facing potential charges. Michigan Attorney General Dana Nessel is asking for a special prosecutor to review the case, turning over the findings of her investigation that claimed the 9 people were involved in a conspiracy to take and tamper with voting machines. Nessel's investigation into the 2020 election alleges that high-profile officials, including Dar Leaf, the Barry County Sheriff, were involved in a conspiracy to illegally take and tamper with voting machines. Secretary of State Jocelyn Benson's office had asked the Michigan Attorney General's office and Michigan State Police to launch an investigation back in February after they received a tip that an unnamed third party was allowed to access vote tabulator components and technology in Roscommon County.
But is this alleged? I can remember reading word for word accounts of these machines being brought back, totally tampered with.
Yeah, it's alleged until actual charges have been filed and there's an actual conviction.
I got it.
Yeah. One of the 9 people, Representative Darren Rendon, Republican of Lake City, had told the clerk at Roscommon County the state house was investigating election fraud. That's according to the petition filed by Dana Nessel. Leaf is accused of convincing a local clerk to turn over a voting machine as part of an investigation into election fraud. The Barry County clerk previously told News 8 that the Barry County Sheriff had taken a Dominion voting tabulator from Irving Township in 2021. She said when the machine was returned, it had a broken security seal. Last month, Leaf spoke at a conference in Las Vegas where he acknowledged his actions were being looked into, showing no signs of backing down. At the conference, he said, quote, "Then I found out that investigation is targeting me, and I go, oh, let's play ball. So we filed a lawsuit," end of quote. Yeah, I hope he gets beamed. Yeah, you want to play ball, buddy? Try us. Try it. Leaf filed a lawsuit in the Michigan Court of Claims saying that Nessel, Benson, and the Michigan State Police were blocking his investigation into unfounded claims of voter fraud during the November 2020 election. News 8 stopped by Leaf's home and office and made multiple attempts to contact him, but did not hear back. Of course not, because he's probably sitting in his office, sucking coffee and eating donuts, looking at his fat belly. Just going to call it like it is, folks. And I tell you what, I'm no skinny guy either, but I'm going to call people out on their bullshit.
This is a guy who rubbed shoulders with the hardcore insurrectionists in our own capital, right down in Lansing.
Absolutely. He's buddy-buddy with the Michigan militias. It's on video, folks. He spoke at one of the rallies.
Yeah.
DePerno, who did not respond to Wood Television for comment, denied the allegations during a radio interview Monday. I tried listening to that, and I couldn't stand hearing the sucking up from the Big Show, Michigan's Big Show. Yeah, more like Tiny Penis Show. Call it what it is.
Help me out with DePerno. Isn't this guy practicing law up in the infamous Emmett County?
He's actually out of Kalamazoo, but he was up in Antrim County.
Antrim County, excuse me.
Yeah. So, yeah, let me continue here. The findings allege that DePerno orchestrated a coordinated plan to gain access to voting tabulators that had been used in Roscommon County and Ridgefield Township, Roscommon County, Irving Township in Barry County, and Lake City Township in Missaukee County. The petition claims that DePerno was present at a hotel room during such testing being in quotes. The attorney shut down those allegations during an interview on Monday morning on Michigan's Big Show. In the radio interview, he said, quote, "Her allegations are total garbage," end of quote. No, DePerno, you're total garbage. Just going to call it like it is. DePerno accused Nessel of weaponizing her office for political gain as the two will face off in the November general election. He said, quote, "She comes out with this nonsense claiming that somehow that I did something illegal and that she's going to conduct an investigation, and that's a terrible thing for an attorney general to do against a political opponent," end of quote. So he's pulled the page out of Trump's own playbook. This is political persecution. Yeah.
Yeah, the wacko lineup is complete. The line of scrimmage with Whitmer and Nessel facing a team of absolute bizarre wackos. You know, I got to tell you, I think you channeled your thoughts directly down to the Democratic head party in Detroit when you said they should play nonstop a revolving cycle of the new female governor Republican nominee
Tudor Dixon
stating that there was no exception to the anti-abortion.
And I actually sent an email to correct an Associated Press reporter who wrongfully claimed that Tudor Dixon would have an exception for the life of the mother. No, she said no exceptions.
Right.
It's on video.
They're playing it now ubiquitously. It needs to be continued.
Yep.
It is outrageously egregious, and you can forget party lines when women hear that, where they actually have her being interviewed, and the guy says, hypothetically, a 14-year-old is raped by an uncle. Is there an exception there? No, there's not.
Yep.
That's a death knell, and they need to hammer in the head with it.
Yep. Nessel said she asked for a special prosecutor to step in because of the upcoming election. However, she said there was not a conflict of interest when she opened the investigation, which there wasn't, because this was opened back in 2021 when nobody on the Republican side was running for anything statewide. Let me go on to our next story here. Jackie, I know how much you just love Florida governor death sentence. He's stepped in again. I have this story from Isabella Zavaris, writing for Business Insider, dated July 30th. Have you heard this story yet about DeSantis going after drag shows now?
After drag shows?
Yeah. Listen to this. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis has filed a complaint against a Miami restaurant that hosts a weekly drag brunch after children were seen at the event. According to The Hill, the video was posted by Libs of TikTok, a right-wing social media account. In the complaint obtained by The Hill, DeSantis alleged that our house, that's the letter R followed by house, violated state law and cited a 1947 state Supreme Court ruling that men impersonating women in a suggestive and indecent fashion is a public nuisance. So he's using a 75-year-old court ruling to go after drag shows.
Hey, I've been in Key West, Halloween. Their drag shows are world famous. Thousands of people go to see it. DeSantis better not travel down the chain of keys.
Yeah.
You know, I told you about the story, I think, in Melbourne High School, where the group of young seniors in the school formed a LGBTQ association and put up a banner saying that gay kids are included, or gay kids matter, et cetera, et cetera. It was ripped down. Yeah. It was replaced with "You're all going to hell, you f***s," by the hands of students. So here's my proclamation. Hate is the trickle down for the Republican Party. When you have DeSantis spewing out hatred against the drag activity, et cetera, it drags down all the way through to the young people in the schools. I know my son lives in Melbourne. He has a daughter who will be a freshman in high school. And that is the only real trickle-down theory. You know, the whole idea of rich people having their money trickle down in the pockets of the middle class, that's BS. But here's the real trickle-down. Republican hatred and vitriol dribbles down. It comes out of the mouth of religious fundamentalist ministers, and it dribbles down into classrooms, into families, and we see it right now permeating all of American society. It's just incredible that DeSantis can be the headwaters of this hatred, and they don't stand in its way. It's incredible that we are afraid to go to the marketplace. We're afraid to go to a concert. We're afraid for our kids in school, not just from mass shooters, but from their desk mate, the guy across the seat, because they are filled with the rage resulting in these leaders, these Republican leaders' hatred. Damn it.
Yeah.
This is personal for me. I have relatives in Florida. They keep telling me about the don't say gay law and then the next law. And this guy he's got enough base, a redneck base down there. He can do what he wants.
Yeah. I'm going to read a comment that somebody posted on my personal Facebook page, a friend of ours. You know who he is. I'm sure you've seen him. So I copy and pasted a tweet that Marjorie Taylor Greene posted after the raid on Mar-a-Lago, the FBI search warrant.
Peachtree Margie.
Yeah, she was responding to Kevin McCarthy saying, Attorney General Garland, preserve your documents, clear your calendar. She says, what is happening will not be tolerated. We are coming.
We're coming. Yep.
Yeah. My response was, these crooked motherfuckers ought to all be locked up. And I mean that sincerely. Every single one of these evil, violent, conservative traitors. So responded with, I love your passion, dislike your contempt. It's going to kill you, brother. I'm going to respond directly to you. If you don't have contempt for this type of bullshit that is happening now, you are brain dead.
And that's what's going to kill you.
Yeah, it's just like the Nazis in the 30s. They went for the gypsies first, and nobody stood up. Then they went for the Catholics, and nobody stood up. Then they went for the Jews, and nobody stood up. Right there it is. It is a step-by-step progression. And if you don't stop it now, you're never going to stop it. It's called paradox of tolerance. If you tolerate the intolerant take over. By the way, Karl Popper also said that it was not only legal but morally ethical to shed blood to regain control from the intolerant. As a matter of fact, you know what? I'm going to find this is a cut, Jack, I have been wanting to play for a long time on this show. I'm sure that some of the stations are not going to like it. This is George Carlin when he was asked what needs to be done to change things in this country. This is the late, great comic George Carlin being serious for a minute. Take a good listen, folks.
You know, if I had to say to you, what is the answer? I would say massive bloodshed. I really would. I don't really, honestly, deep down believe in political action. I think the system contracts and expands as it wants to. It accommodates these changes. I think the civil rights movement was an accommodation on the part of those who own the country. I think they see where their self-interest lies. They see a certain amount of freedom seems good, an illusion of liberty. Give these people a voting day every year so that they'll have the illusion of meaningless choice that we go like slaves and say, "Oh, I voted." The limits of debate in this country are established before the debate even begins, and everyone else is marginalized. They're made to seem either to be communists or some sort of disloyal person, a kook, there's a word, and now it's conspiracy. Say they've made that something that should not be even entertained for a minute, that powerful people might get together and have a plan. Doesn't happen. You're a kook. You're a conspiracy buff. So the only way you cure that, death, bloodshed. I don't advocate it, but I see that it's really the only.
Yep. He sees it's the only way. And I'm starting to come around to that point of view just because of what I see in this society.
Well, my response as your co-host is that I look at it as a defensive measure.
Yes, it is.
When I see this tempest boiling and I hear comments from such mindless people as Marjorie Greene and the whole host of these conservatives, I'm mentally beginning to prepare myself. What that means, as far as arming myself or whatever, I can't tell you. But it first comes by recognition and understanding where we're at. And that's what you have shown with some of the comments. And it's always met. Some of your comments have been, hey, you got to fight fire with fire. I'm saying when you see the fire coming, you better get ready to fight the fire. We're in a slight variance. But if you continue to accommodate these people with that, hey, don't get too extreme attitude, they're the ones who precipitated. This is not an equivalent. We're not the perpetrators of violence here. We're responding to the threat of violence like any responsible family member would. And they are ready to go. They're armed. They have already flexed their muscle. They have quartered. I've read it. That was just a practice run January the 6th. They're sitting around their campfires out in the middle of northern Michigan planning their next move.
Yeah, exactly. I'm just going to skip the rest of this DeSantis story here because it's absolutely ridiculous. Yeah, by the way, the just to mention real quick on the DeSantis story, his complaint with the State Department of Business and Professional Regulation, they conducted their own investigation. They found that not only were there minors in this restaurant, but that the bar had a children's menu. Well, most bars do. I got news for you. The Hill reported that our house's liquor license could be revoked if the complaint is successful. The owner of the restaurant is hoping to resolve the incident, calling it a misunderstanding. So we will see.
Hey, real quick, just want to mention the church down in Texas that thought they had a right to alter the edit the great Hamilton play that's out right now and put it in their own BS. I hope they get prosecuted to the full extent.
I hope they do too. So speaking of getting sued, Trump had to travel to New York for a deposition in the state investigation into his businesses. He invoked the Fifth Amendment 440 times, as we mentioned earlier. So, yeah, lovely.
That's a president invoking the Fifth Amendment, like Al Capone.
Yeah. And real quickly, there were primary elections on Tuesday. I do have some of the quick results here. In Wisconsin, Tim Michels, who is a construction executive endorsed by Donald Trump, won his primary, defeating former Lieutenant Governor Rebecca Kleefisch and State Assemblyman Tim Rathman. So Michels will face Tony Evers in the fall. Lieutenant Governor Mandela Barnes won the Democratic primary for Senate. She will face Senator Ron Johnson in November. Robin Vos, the powerful Speaker of the Wisconsin Assembly, narrowly defeated Adam Steen, a Trump-endorsed primary challenger. State Assemblywoman Amy Loudenbeck won the Republican nomination for Secretary of State. She will face Democratic incumbent Doug LaFollette. He's been in office since 1974 as Secretary of State. Here's the thing, Wisconsin, the Secretary of State does not oversee the elections. It's an independent citizen panel that oversees the elections. And that was done years ago by the Republicans. So once again, they're doing it to themselves. In Washington State, Representative Jamie Herrera Butler lost and is been primaried out by a Trump supporter. So we will see how that goes. In Minnesota, Representative Ilhan Omar narrowly survived a challenge from moderate Dem Don Samuels. I'll just say corporate-owned Dem. That's more accurate. He ran on a pro-police platform, which is, once again, one more reason why you need to purge the centrist out of the Democratic Party. If you're pro-life, if you're pro-cop, if you're a bootlicker, you need to be kicked out of the party now. Kick them all out. I can't do anymore. I'm getting angry again. Oh, boy.
When my defund the FBI T-shirt comes to the mail, I'll let you look at it.
I don't know. I got another row your vote sticker coming from MoveOn.org real soon. So
cool.
Oh, boy. Well, Jack, we are out of time for this week, and we'll be back next week. I'm Darren Gibson.
I'm Jack Prince.
Please support independent media, the First Amendment, and a woman's right to choose.
The stations that carry Southpaws do not necessarily share the opinions expressed on the show. Southpaws is protected by the First Amendment to the U.S. Constitution and is copyrighted by Big D Entertainment. All rights reserved.